Welcome back. This is Jeff Hix, curator of the Strange As It Seems archives and grandnephew of John Hix, who created Strange As It Seems back in the late 1920s. Last week we started the series of Blotter, advertising cards that were sent out by the Osborne Company, and basically just kind of like business cards at the time. Started in the early 1900s and ran through the 1940s. Hot off the press, these series of blotters, you could put your name right next to them for whatever company. We had some like United Motors Service, and you can see Edward G. Lippincott. But they were blotters were basically where you had fountain pens, and you would dip your pen in the blotter paper to kind of stop it from smudging. But people used them as business cards. They sometimes had pinup girls next to them, or pictures of the product, or so on. But Strange As It Seems ran these series, it looks like, through the 1940s or early 1940s. So we're going to pick up again where we left off and go through these amazing. There's two more series that I have here of Strange As It Seems blotter cards. So rapid fire, kind of a greatest hits, another greatest hits. We've done several of these, from books to radio shows to movies to blotter cards. So let's dive in with the 1939 series of blotter cards, Strange As It Seems. Here we go. So first off, we have a railroad that was built across swamps, deserts, and mountains. Basically was built to follow an ink smudge that Czar Nicholas had drawn on a map with his finger. Amazing. All the way from St. Petersburg to Moscow. He was apparently angered when engineers presented several tentative routes for the St. Petersburg to Moscow Railroad, and he just stuck his finger in an inkwell and traced a direct line between the two termini. Missed all the important towns along the way, and the line was built as ordered across swamps, deserts, and mountains. Strange As It Seems. Did you know that the electric motor was not invented? It was discovered. Crazy. Electric dynamos, invented prior to 1873. They convert mechanical energy into electrical energy, and electric motors do just the opposite. The electric motor was discovered in 1873 when a workman accidentally hooked the wires of an idle dynamo to one that was running and caused the idle one to run as a motor. Strange As It Seems. Did you know that America, the famous U.S. patriotic song, was written in a half an hour on a scrap of paper by Dr. Samuel Francis Smith? Incredible. Just on a scrap of paper, momentary inspiration. The song as we know it today is substantially the same as that written by Dr. Samuel Francis Smith, a Baptist minister, back in 1832. The banks of the Deer River near Waukesha, Minnesota, they actually caught fire and burned lower than the riverbed. That's kind of a strange fact, strange occurrence. How about the Handshake that won a championship? We got the Bloomington won the 1935 3-Eye Baseball League pennant because a member of the team shook hands with the manager while rounding third base on a home run. Strange As It Seems. When a Bloomington batter paused between third and home to shake hands with his manager, he was ruled out. On appeal, the game was ordered played over, but Springfield refused and forfeited the championship to Bloomington, all because of a handshake. How about Jerusalem? Beautiful drawing here of Jerusalem, the holy city, sacred to followers of, as we know, the world's three greatest religions: Mohammedanism, Judaism, and Christianity. It's amazing. This is 1939. To Christians, Jerusalem is holy because there Christ preached his new religion to people of the Holy Land. Jews hold Jerusalem holy because there Solomon built his temple, and to Mohammedans, Jerusalem is next in importance to Mecca as their holy city, because from Jerusalem they believed Muhammad ascended to heaven. Keep in mind, this is 1939, before the country of Israel was actually formed. John Hix was talking about the ancient city of Jerusalem. Strange As It Seems. How about George Harbo and Frank Samuelson? They rowed an open boat from New York to France. Amazing. In 1896. Shortly after starting for France from New York in a rowboat, Harbo and Samuelson's craft capsized. Most of their provisions were lost. Passing boats replenished their small stock. They then arrived at the Scilly Islands less than 2 months after setting out from New York, and then continued on to Havre, France. Strange as it seems. Here's an interesting fact about George Washington. We've done a lot about George Washington lately, but he never visited foreign soil. Yet his name has been commemorated on every continent in at least 50 countries of the world. Every state in the U.S. perpetuates his name, and he never visited foreign soil. Amazing. Man has increased more in number, this is in 1939 as well, during the past 100 years than during all the thousands of years he has been on Earth. I should say he and she. 1939. Water, amazingly enough, started a $1 million fire back in Augusta, Georgia in 1908. Strange as it seems, a river that had overflowed and flooded a basement, it started a $1 million fire. The water entering the basement poured over a stock of quicklime that was stored there. A slaking process began, producing enough heat to set the building on fire. And the fire then spread to other buildings. Fire started by water. Strange as it seems. New York City, here's a drawing of New York City, contains 141 islands, even more than Venice. I guess, the Venice of America, right? 21 more than Venice, Italy. Manhattan, the main part of New York, is itself an island, as we know. In the city proper, there are 21 islands, but in Greater New York, which includes numerous islands in the Jamaica Bay District, there's 120 more. Amazing. Strange as it seems, radium, the most precious metal in the world, completely useless. At least in 1939 it was. Amazing how it became more useful later, right? No use has ever been found for pure metallic radium. The radium used in hospitals is not pure radium. It's radium salts, a grayish compound bearing about the same relationship to radium that table salt has to metallic sodium. Strange as it seems. And we'll finish the Strange as it seems blotter series with the 1940 stack of cards, kind of going back to famous Americans and some of our presidents and other founding fathers and so on. But we have Teddy Roosevelt, who visited every state in the Union during his first term as president. That's the answer to the one at the top. Ulysses S. Grant, Republican nominee, never voted the Republican ticket nor cast a Republican ballot until 8 years after he was elected the Republican president. Amazing. Abraham Lincoln, we just did a full episode on Abraham Lincoln, but he grew, we talked about this at the time as well, grew his famous beard just to please a little girl. She wrote to him that she thought he would look better with one, and that's why he grew that famous beard that he's been known for throughout time. Zachary Taylor, the first, last, and only public office, was president of the United States. He had never even voted before becoming president. Amazing. William Henry Harrison, whose wife was too ill to come to Washington, did his own shopping with for the White House with a market basket on his arm. Can you imagine that today? I'm crazy. How about Martin Van Buren, the 8th president of the United States? He was the first president born in America, Martin Van Buren. There's George Washington, of course, the richest president the U.S. ever had, amazingly enough, maybe, till this day and age, huh? Had to borrow money in order to reach New York City for his own inauguration ceremony. Strange as it seems. Another fact about Thomas Jefferson here, in composing his own epitaph, it's amazing, neglected to mention that he was once president of the United States. Although he wrote his own epitaph, he forgot to mention that he had been president of the United States. His epitaph reads, "Here was buried Thomas Jefferson, author of the Declaration of American Independence, of the Statue of Virginia for Religious Freedom, and father of the University of Virginia." Those were his most important accomplishments in writing his own epitaph, strange as it seems. How about John Quincy Adams? He began public service at 14 years old as secretary of the American legation in Russia. Amazing. And here's one on Andrew Jackson, also known as Old Hickory. he personally nursed back to health a colored servant who had been stricken with smallpox. Amazing fact there about Andrew Jackson. William Howard Taft, who weighed 326 pounds just before becoming president in 1909. He was a champion wrestler at Yale, interestingly enough, in his college days. And the final fact on Calvin Coolidge. He received only one vote from his classmates. He graduated from Amherst in 1895, right? He was also a member of the Phi Gamma Delta fraternity. I remember this because all Fijis had to memorize a quote by Calvin Coolidge that began with, "Nothing in the world can take the place of persistence." But Dwight D. Morrow, who voted for him, received all the remaining ballots. So apparently, when everyone voted for who was most likely to succeed in life, that was what it was for. Everybody voted for Dwight W. Morrow. Nobody remembers him, but Dwight Morrow was smart enough to vote for Calvin Coolidge, who definitely succeeded in life, becoming President of the United States. So that wraps it up for the second and final series from the Blotter advertising cards, another compendium of greatest hits for Strange as It Seems. If you like fascinating facts from history and old comic strips, movies, radio shows, hit like, hit follow, subscribe, hit the bell to subscribe. We're back here every week with amazing facts and figures and stories from the Strange as It Seems archives, brought to you every week. We'd love to have you join us on this journey, and we'll see you next week here at Strange as It Seems.